Now back to Hanging with Hennig on 97.3 ESPN FM.
I don't want them to gain another yard.
And on the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City.
You blitz all night.
Streaming live on YouTube, Instagram, and the X platform.
Josh Hennig back here in the Dr. Squatch virtual studios on YouTube and X, as well as 97.3 ESPN FM. As promised, joining us now, Rob Maaddi, senior NFL insider for the Associated Press, joining me here as he looks very tanned and refreshed on the stream. Rob, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. How are you, Josh?
I'm doing good. I mean, I'm not as tan as you are, but I mean, good for you, man. You're looking good.
Yeah,
man.
30 days in the sun will do that to you. So it's pretty good. Starting to fade a little bit, so I got to get back out there.
Oh, okay. My bad. Well, I won't keep you too long then. I wanted to get to start with this because, the Eagles, they report for training camp in a couple weeks here. For you, is there a storyline or a topic that stands out to you the most heading into 2025 training camp for the Eagles?
I think it's got to do a little bit with how the team comes in, personality, and as far as coming off Super Bowl victory, how hungry are you to do it again? And repeating, obviously, we know is difficult in the NFL. Up until the Chiefs did it last year, it had been 2 decades since a team repeated as Super Bowl champions. So that's one of the storylines. But also, of course, Josh, we know they got a new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator. And what is that going to look like going into the season? We've had the OTAs, the offseason stuff, but now it's training camp. Now is when the season begins. Now is when guys got to start getting in there, understanding what the new play caller is going to want to do, what the new, I said defensive coordinator, I just meant offensive coordinator, obviously, what they're going to want to do, what Kevin Patullo's offense is going to look like this year. And the fact that he's been there, he's been part of the team, he's been part of the organization, he's had input in the past, indicates and suggests from all things that we've heard that it's not going to be too different, but everybody's going to put their stamp on it. So I think how the offense responds to a new offensive coordinator, Jalen Hurts having yet one more different play caller in his ear for how many years in a row is it now? And just the continued lack of continuity there. Had some guys last year who had breakout career years. I don't know if Saquon Barkley can ever do what he did again last season, which was almost historic, but the Eagles are not going to probably need Saquon Barkley to have a 2,000-yard season to be able to win a division, compete for a Super Bowl again. As long as he stays healthy, Jalen stays healthy, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and that offensive line stays intact, no matter what the play caller, what Kevin Patullo is doing, what the system is going to look like, I think they're going to have success. But that's going to be something that we follow early in training camp for sure.
And what's interesting is you mentioned it Hurts. It's I believe it's 8 different coordinators in 10 years is the stat. So
wow.
It's either 8 and 10 or 9 and 11, one of those two. But it's absolutely nuts. But what's interesting, Rob, is that even Jalen Hurts has said he's acting like it's different. He's like, oh, well, Kevin Patullo's been here for a while. We're familiar with each other. A.J. Brown, Jalen Hurts, these guys who have been here for a few years speak highly of Patullo. So apparently it's not just Sirianni. And it feels like, I'm not saying it's apples to apples, Rob, but it feels like that maybe there's a different vibe around Kevin Patullo versus when it was Brian Johnson being elevated.
Yeah, and I think when Brian Johnson was elevated, he had the familiarity and the relationship, the long-standing relationship with Jalen Hurts going back to when he was a kid. And there may have been some difficulty as far as when you are put into a new role, and he had been Jalen's QB coach, and now he's the offensive coordinator. And we saw how that season unfolded. And I think that sometimes it's relationships can change, and relationships can maybe impact what leadership looks like, what it can be, what it can translate to when you have a different kind of a role on a team in that aspect. So I thought Brian Johnson was equipped to be not only an offensive coordinator, but a guy who potentially could be a head coach in the NFL. And I still think that he's got that capability, but it just didn't work out that season with Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni and the way the Eagles had gone from Shane Steichen and the offense took a step back. So I think Kevin Patullo might be – there's a lot of learning involved, and I think there's learning involved for everybody there, whether it's Patullo observing how that unfolded, Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni understanding how things kind of went wrong previously and what they seem or what they feel like things can do differently this time around. So I think Kevin Patullo is better positioned maybe to have a more seamless transition than Brian Johnson had, but it's going to be hard to live up to what the team did last year, because anything short of a repeat of a Super Bowl is going to not be considered successful. So if the offense starts out slow, if the offense stumbles, they got a tough schedule too early on. If the offense has any kinds of just any setbacks whatsoever, it's going to be easy to put some of that blame on Kevin Patullo, and I don't know that it necessarily will be his fault until we see how things shake out.
That's a great point you just brought up. Rob Maaddi from the Associated Press, senior NFL insider, joining us here on Hanging with Hennig on 97.3 ESPN about the fact that if things don't go well, right, if things are not as great as they were last year, you don't go back to the Super Bowl, right? If you, if the Mekhi Becton loss is more of an issue than we thought, if A.J. Brown is reading a book on the sideline again, or whatever scenario happens, it's like, well, Kevin Patullo, first-time coordinator, like, there is an element, Rob, where maybe it's almost like a built-in, like, hey, at least we have this excuse to hang on. Like, I hate to think about it that way, but there has to be a part of the Eagles organization that probably does look at Patullo as, hey, we're taking the training wheels off, and let's see if he falls off the bike or not.
Yeah, and just like look at this schedule. You're starting out with the Cowboys. It's Thursday night, and hanging the banner and all that. Division rival, Cowboys trying to prove that they're not like. And then you go for that's a tough game, and then you go Super Bowl rematch in Kansas City. Then it's Rams who are it's a playoff rematch. Then it's Buccaneers in Tampa. Seems like they play every September, and Todd Bowles and the Buccaneers have had the Eagles number. And then it's the Broncos, who were a playoff team last year. So it's not until week, what is that, 6? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Week 6 against the Giants where you have what you would consider a gimme. And then it's the Vikings. Wow, they play the Giants twice in a 3-week span. They get the Giants out of the way in October. And then it's the Vikings in between, and then the Packers, then the Lions, then the Cowboys. Like, this is a very difficult schedule, and teams are going to be gunning for the Super Bowl champs. So I think that their record may not be – their one-loss record could take a hit, and it may not necessarily be reflective of the coaching of Kevin Patullo. It may not be his fault if the offense has some – whether it's early struggles, whether it takes a little bit of time, or whether they are just facing good teams who are geared up for them, who have made adjustments from last year, who know what this team is all about. And it's going to be incumbent upon Kevin Patullo and Nick Sirianni and the rest of the offensive coaching staff to adjust and see how they can go at things differently. I think he's going to have his spin on on the offense differently than Kellen Moore did. Jalen Hurts is probably, and deservedly so, I think he's a Super Bowl MVP. And no matter how much disrespect he still gets nationally, and even locally too. I've seen people keep him out of the top 10 or top 11 Philadelphia athlete poll, which makes no sense to me. I still think he should have a lot of input into what the offense looks like.
And I'm sure he will have a level of input as well, just because of the supposed great relationship that him and Patullo, everyone keeps saying that they have. Read into that what you will. Jillian, I don't think Jillian speaks highly of almost anyone, but now he's like gushing over Patullo. I don't know if it's a good or bad thing, but we'll find out soon enough. On the defensive side, Rob, I got to ask you, because they did lose some players. They lost some starters. But I wanted to play for you. So as you know, everyone's got a podcast now, right? So on the Exciting Mike's podcast, as you can imagine, Cooper DeJean and Reed Blankenship are the co-hosts of that pod. Well, Zach Baun was on the pod. And Baun suggested that the Eagles' defense might actually be better this year. Take a listen. I want you to react to this.
And I think we have a lot to do as a defense, too.
Oh, yeah.
Like, to think that was all of our first year in that scheme.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
that's
crazy. Like, what are we going to do next year? Like,
I know.
Already, I feel like we're miles ahead of where we were last year at this time.
No, we're miles ahead, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
We're having these high-level conversations in OTAs. We haven't really been thrown in the fire.
We're not even like planning for who we're like our offense, like who.
So a lot of
with.
what ifs. Yeah. That could help us,
which is good.
Those guys seem to be pretty confident. Rob, is that confidence legitimate in your mind?
I think so, because the point they bring up is valid. This is another year in the system. Like at this point last year, nobody knew Zach Baun was going to be an All-Pro. An all-pro linebacker who was maybe the best linebacker out there, him and Fred Warner, in the NFL. And we didn't know what Cooper DeJean, when he had some health issues, when he was going to be able to step out on the field. Didn't know that he was going to be able to play at the level that he did. And obviously Kenyon Mitchell at the other corner spot. So these are guys who are second year in the league, second year in the system. And in Zach Baun's case, obviously a veteran. And yeah, they do have some holes to fill. Milton Williams, Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham, no longer there. CJ, GJ, no longer there. But there's a lot to that. And I think there's that confidence that they have, knowing that they're coming off a Super Bowl victory where they shut down Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. They absolutely dominated, demolished that team. The Chiefs didn't put up any numbers or any points or anything significant until the game was well in hand late in the game. So for all intents and purposes, they just absolutely annihilated one of the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history and that offense. So they should carry that confidence over into this season. And I think it's legitimate that they feel that way. I don't know that I want to have two starting players on that defense having a podcast into the season. So I hope the Exciting Mikes and maybe can shelf that until the off season. But it is what it is nowadays.
I mean, as long as it's not as self-destructive as Micah Parsons and his podcast for the Cowboys, I think I think it's okay. I feel like Micah, you know what Micah's problem is? He just talks too much. Like he doesn't keep it like, he's
honest to a fault. He speaks his mind, and he gets himself in hairy situations by just saying what's on his mind, and maybe some, and you know what? I think that costs him a little bit in the eyes of some of the voters and some of the things. Like some people don't like that kind of personality, and they may hold that against you when it comes time to voting for whatever awards or whatever it may be. And I think he's a guy who may need to kind of do a little bit, and he does tremendous amount on the field, but let his playing do more of the talking than he does. But I don't know that Reed Blankenship and Cooper DeJean are going to get into any kinds of trouble. But you never know, right, Josh? I mean, like even someone like Brandon Graham last year, he had a show, and he's always great in the media, and he said something about, remember the whole AJ Jalen Hurts situation that Brandon Graham injured at the time. He put out there, and that led to all kinds of issues in the locker room. So even veteran guys who should be savvy can sometimes slip up.
Couple more for AP senior NFL insider Rob Maaddi joining me here on Hanging with Hennig on 97.3 ESPN FM, streaming live on the YouTube and X platforms in the Dr. Squatch virtual studio. Rob, we mentioned the Cowboys, and I got to ask you because I think they are the biggest question mark coming into this year in the NFC, because first-time head coach Brian Schottenheimer, nothing against him, personally, but I just don't think he's his dad. You know what I mean? His dad was a perennial winner, and Brian is just now getting his first head coaching job. Meanwhile, you bring in a guy like George Pickens. He could be combustible. I know he's playing on a contract year, but we saw him and all of his mess in Pittsburgh. So to me, I think the Cowboys are arguably the biggest wild card in the NFC because to me, they had the most what ifs along with the most talent.
Yeah, and it's a bounce back year for the Cowboys. Dak Prescott is coming off being the highest paid quarterback in NFL, highest paid player in NFL history, and obviously got injured, and the season wasn't what he wanted it to be. I don't know that they did enough in the offseason. I still don't think that they did enough in the offseason to help Dak out, right? You got him George Pickens as a number 2 receiver, but as you mentioned, George Pickens is a guy who can go off the rails. And the running back situation, they haven't answered that for a couple of years. Tony Pollard had 1,000-yard season last year. He's gone. They're counting on Miles Sanders and Javonte Williams right now as the running backs. You got to do. I think you got to do, and they got some rookies. You got to do better than that. You got to get it. You have to have some semblance of a running game, of a rushing attack to be able to have success in the NFL. Just to be able to take some pressure off Dak and CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens and the offense and some of the decisions that Jerry has made in the past few years just haven't panned out. And I think they've got talent. The defense has the ability. Like last year, that defense, was it last year where they started out the shutout? Or my years are running into each other, but they have the ability with Micah Parsons and some of the guys that they have on defense to be dominant, but they also fell apart and were completely exposed in the middle against the run, couldn't stop teams. We don't know what Brian Schottenheimer is going to look like as a head coach. Obviously, his dad had a lot of success. I thought there were other guys out there that they could have brought in that could have had more of an immediate impact. But Jerry wants to run the show, and it's got to be Jerry's thing. And I don't know that he's going to be interested in the guys who would push back, whether it's Gruden, Belichick, successful guys like that, or even others out there. So I think the Cowboys will be a team that can be in the mix for a wild card. But I don't feel that the Cowboys are anywhere close to the Eagles level right now, or the Commanders for that matter. So that opening day game, the fact that it's a rivalry, the fact that some teams who are hanging the banner have had historically a letdown in week 1 is the only reason why I have any concern about it. It's not the talent versus talent aspect.
Before I let you go, I can't let you go without asking you about the big trade this week. Steelers sending Minkah Fitzpatrick with a draft pick to Miami in exchange for Jalen Ramsey and Jonnu Smith. Obviously, the Jonnu Smith, that's a reunion with Arthur Smith from when they were in Tennessee. Jalen Ramsey, I mean, that guy obviously upgrades the Steelers' defense. His secondary, still don't understand why Miami keeps willing to trade away good players, but I digress. Rob, your take on that deal for both the Steelers and the Dolphins?
Yeah, initially when I first heard it, it was like a head scratcher. I thought like Minkah Fitzpatrick is a better player in the secondary than Jalen Ramsey is right now. But then you start to dig into it a little bit. Jonnu Smith coming back is a big part of it. Pro Bowl season last year, breakout season last year for the Dolphins, and you add him to the mix with Aaron Rodgers. I know they got Pat Freiermuth at tight end. The Steelers do Darnell Washington. It just gives him another target, somebody who's had success, and we know that matters. Veteran presence, veteran guys, veteran pass catchers are important to Aaron Rodgers. And then you start to think about what they're going to do with Jalen Ramsey, try to use him in a little bit of that hybrid role, inside, outside, maybe a little bit at safety. And the fact that in today's NFL, Josh, corners are just that much more valuable than a safety position because teams are running. You need three. You need this slot and two outside guys. They're in that division in the AFC North. Just look at the Bengals: Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and what you have to go up against. And the Steelers know that they need some corners who are top tier, top notch to be able to compete. And of course, we know Baltimore and their offense and the talent that they have. And I think that's where that comes down to. I know that I tried to figure out and find out if maybe there was any kind of issue with Minka. He's a quiet guy, sort of in the locker room, a leadership standpoint. There really wasn't any of that. We know Jalen kind of wears out. Jalen Ramsey's worn out his welcome at times. He's been part of a winning team. He's been part of a Super Bowl championship team with the Rams. So I think that matters. That's helpful. From that aspect. But when people say they're going all in and that they made that trade because they're going all in, well, you also traded away a guy who's been an all-pro safety. So it's not a completely like you traded a third-round pick to bring in talent. No, you traded talent to bring in talent, but you brought in a couple positions that can help you.
He's Rob Maaddi, senior NFL insider for the Associated Press at Rob Maaddi on the Twitter X platform. Joining me here on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, also don't forget about Faith in the Field, heard every Saturday and Sunday mornings right here on 97.3 ESPN. You know, Rob, you got to get Saquon Barkley on the Faith in the Field because it feels like he's going everywhere else talking about his faith in Christ, but he hasn't been on Faith in the Field yet. We got to make this happen, you know?
He was on, and it kind of like the headlines kind of irk me a little bit when they say, "Oh, well, Saquon became a Christian this offseason." No, he's been a Christian for a long time. It's just that he was baptized last year, so it's like you're taking that outward step, and it's that same quote, it's that same interview that keeps circulating out there. But you know what? I'll get him on. I got to get him back. I had him on when he was a Giant. Got to get him on as an Eagle, and I can't go without saying. My favorite baseball player of all time retired this week, Freddie Galvis, Josh. He hung.
Wow.
I know we thought he was in Mexico, Japan, wherever he was playing, and I still like to look at Freddie's numbers versus Bryson Stott's numbers, and I'm still comparing Freddie to other guys that come into town and play, whether it's second, short, or third.
Well, his defense is certainly better than half the Phillies, so.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Rob, always appreciate you jumping on. Take care, my friend. Stay blessed. Enjoy the rest of the weekend.
You got it, man. Loving the new time situation. Good luck with everything.